Hey everyone, welcome to Daily Revelations. This is a weekly Bible study where we go through one book of the Bible at a time. And right now we are in the book of James, and this week specifically we are in James 3. And James 3 is filled with lots and lots of wisdom, especially wisdom that we need to hear over and over again because it focuses on what comes out of our mouths. And I want to extend that today even further into what we write, because our day and time, we are on social media, and sometimes what we spout out comes through our fingertips, comes through our phones and our texts and other things. And so I want to kind of address all of that today too, because that's what God's talking about, and that's really what God spoke to me about this morning. And that's what this is really about, is what is God speaking to you? And so we go through a different precept method every day as we read through the same chapter. And today we're on day 2. And what today's study focuses on is finding comparison and contrast, if-thens, or different literary techniques that the author uses to accentuate a point that they're trying to get across to the reader. And comparison and contrast are pretty thick in what James is writing, and especially in this verse that he talks about how we use our mouth to bless God and then to curse man, and yet it comes from the same place. And what that reveals when we do that is that what we're speaking really towards God is a lie, because if it's coming out of the same place, it's coming out of what verse 14 says is our own arrogance. And we can say beautiful and pretty things, but it doesn't mean that it's in here. And we can maybe fool some people. We can't fool God, though. And that's really what this focuses on, because James goes through and he says, fountain, then water, continues to pour out water. It doesn't change into grape juice or anything else. He doesn't say that, but that's what I'm saying. A fig tree produces figs. Doesn't produce oranges, doesn't produce apples. It produces figs. It's one thing from the one source. Again, salt water, the ocean produces salt water. It's not going to produce fresh water. If you want fresh water, you got to go to a freshwater source. Our heart works the same way. Unfortunately, what we have embedded in us is natural sin. And so what we do when we pull from our natural heart is yuck. And I wrote this down. When we don't see that we need to pull from somewhere else instead of within us, that is when we lie. We lie to ourselves. And that's exactly what James is saying in verse 14. Do not be arrogant and so lie against the truth. What he means there, and what God just really showed me this morning, is that every time I deny that something that I'm going to write or something that I'm going to say that I'm pulling from within me is okay, it's a good thing, I'm lying to myself, because it's not true. Only God's truth embedded in here, only God's wisdom embedded in my heart is where my words and where my writing, everything that I speak and speak into others' lives, has to come from His truth, not my own understanding, because that's pretty messed up. And it is just because that's the nature of my heart. I hate that. Someday that will be gone. Thank goodness. But for now, that's what we deal with. We all deal with it. And we all have a choice. Where are we going to pull from? And so we have to make that choice every time we think of something to say or to write. Where is this coming from? Am I pulling from God's wisdom and God's truth? Or am I lying to myself that what I am thinking and pulling from my own resources is good? And over again, we know it's not. So, hope that's an encouragement for you today. I don't know what God's going to lead you to as you go through this study yourself, but I just encourage you, dig into God's Word, see what He has to say to you, and just take that and run with it, because God will show you wisdom and continue to lead you closer to Him through that process. So thanks for joining me on Daily Revelations today. I'll see you again tomorrow as we continue this study in